Here, I'm the host of the More We Know podcast for the Gen Zs and Millennials. I know I say that. I say it's for the Gen Zs and Millennials. And yeah, although that is the focus, this podcast is really for anyone. But I look back at my time in college and I wish I had something like this. I wish I had a podcast where I could learn from mentors or experts in their industries or, fellow Gen Zs that are talking about real world topics, that are talking about what is a credit card APR, what is investing, what does all this mean? How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the More We Know podcast. I am your host, Mir, where our goal is to bring you experts from all around the world to provide you real life mentorship in your pocket, whether you're on the go, at home, wherever it might be. We brought on people like the founder of Reebok, the mayor of Miami, and today we have an exceptional guest by the name of Chuck Runyon, who is the founder and CEO of Anytime Fitness, which is the world's largest co-ed fitness club franchise. They have more than 3 million plus members worldwide at 3,700 plus gyms, and the company has more than 1 billion in system-wide revenue. Chuck is also the CEO and co-founder of the Selfesteem brands, which has a multitude of other businesses, including Waxing the City, the Bar Method, and Basecamp Fitness. And before we get started, I do want to give a special shout out to the listeners listening in. If you're in Chicago, you need to check out Basecamp Fitness, which is opening up at the end of the month here. It's run by a very special friend of mine, and it is a heck of a workout for 35 minutes. You can't beat it. So go check it out. Tell them you're from the More We Know podcast, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. But Chuck, it is a pleasure and an honor to have you on today. Thanks for taking the time.
Mir, thank you. And just a quick correction, we actually have 5,000 locations around the world on all 7 continents, by the way. We're the first franchise brand, the first fitness brand in history to be on all 7 continents.
Wow, look at that. And you guys are in Japan as well, right?
We have nearly 1,000 locations in Japan, 600 in Australia, of course, 2,500 in the US and growing. And 2 years ago, right before COVID, my partner and I and a couple others launched our first club in Antarctica. And that's what got us to all 7 continents.
So Chuck, it's a remarkable story, and a lot of people know the Anytime Fitness brand. Having family that lives in Indiana, it's a very popular gym here. Everywhere you go, we see an Anytime Fitness. It's a gym that I've used, my father's used. My father's a doctor, so being able to have access at 24/7, it's a genius concept. But that's what a lot of people know. I really want to take it back for a second. When you grew up, were your parents entrepreneurial? What did you do growing up?
It's funny. My parents were not entrepreneurs and they were not fitness enthusiasts. I don't think my dad's ever been a member of a commercial health club. And, my mom worked at McDonald's for a good portion of her adult life. And so she was a store manager. That was my first real job as a teenager, working drive-through and, French fries and working the grill. And that still is a wonderful, it's one of the best franchises of all time. And so, although I kind of learned at the time, not knowing, but seeing the systems they have in place, seeing how, people would kind of graduate through the ranks and learn different skills, they are an exceptional franchise. So that is, I'm proud of my time working there. My mom, of course, was a terrific role model. And however, I think I still feel so much guilt in giving people so many calories. Now, of course, with our brands, we got to take those calories away.
Absolutely. And what about where did you go to college and what was that process like?
So I only did a short stint at a community college. We grew up in maybe what I would say lower middle class, didn't have a lot of finances. So I, of course, was paying for my own college, which is fine. And I was just going. And when I was going to college, I got a part-time job at a health club. And of course, I love that environment. I've always been sports minded. So I could play like tennis and basketball and racquetball and do some weightlifting. And it was during that part-time stint where, number one, I was loving it. I was making good money. And then it turned into full-time. And we saw this opportunity to do sales and marketing for health clubs around the country. It doesn't sound like it's all that difficult, but the average owner, when it would be a doctor who loved racquetball, he'd open up a gym, but he didn't know how to sell and market his club. And so we would send teams of people to do this all around the country. And so that's what I did in my 20s, from the age of 21 to 28. I traveled the country, typically 10 months out of the year, I'd be located in various cities doing these marketing blitzes. And so that kind of built up our muscle of like how to sell memberships, how to acquire, how to, build relationships, how to like set up a mini business every couple months. And that parlayed into the success of Anytime Fitness.
Yeah. And Chuck, now you have this company that does over $1 billion a year. One thing that's taboo, especially in our Gen Z audience, is there's this uncomfort sort of with sales, thinking that you don't need sales or sales is this, or they get this car salesman type vibe. But you've done it. So how important is understanding sales and being able to do that?
I think it's one of the most underrated, critical assets of being a founder. At the end of the day, it's your job to not only create where it's going, but you've got to, when you think about sales is really about influence. And you have to influence your team, right, to climb that mountain, whatever you're going to try to do. And so I think, sales is, first of all, what people get wrong is they think about like someone talking at them, like a used car salesman trying to sell a car. Sales is really about listening first. So a great salesperson is a listener. It's about understanding the needs and wants of the consumer and then problem solving, matching up those needs and wants with your products or services. So if you are an exceptional listener, and then you can influence people to like unlock their potential or meet their needs and with your product or services, that's what sales is all about. And so I think a founder, I think it's a very important attribute to have, is to influence and sell people on the dream of a vision. Because let's face it, when you're starting a business, you're going towards a dream that's unrealized, and you've got to like continually kind of sell or influence people to march in that direction.
And I hope people are listening there, because to build the company that you did, there was no way you could have done that without sales. So you really have to know how to sell and have that process there. So how old were you when you actually launched your first location or the franchise? How old were you then?
I was 32 when our first Anytime Fitness opened. It's important to note that, we didn't really have much franchising experience. This was a brand new model. I mean, today, like you said, it's very common. People don't question it. But back in 2002, right, the very first iPod was coming out. The technology of access to like get in 24/7 wasn't that common. We didn't have smartphones. There's no social media. And so all of the industry experts said this business model would not work because people would not feel safe and they wouldn't have like that connection of like a trainer or manager. And so we were going against the grain. We had to believe in ourselves because not many people believed in it. And thankfully we did. We had the confidence and courage to do it. And, we created this category of 24/7 clubs that thrive in like different market sizes. I mean, a third of our clubs are in rural, in markets like you mentioned in Indiana, where a traditional club could never, be viable. And we're also in suburban and urban centers as well. But it was, for us, we saw areas of the country that either had no fitness opportunities or they were kind of dilapidated old clubs. And so we brought Anytime Fitness, all the big club, big equipment you'd find in a big city, but to a smaller market. And it's gone really well. And it creates, the access system security creates 24/7 access to our members, but also gives our owners a refreshingly simple business to operate.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The model that you've created, not only is it empowering, of course, rewarding financially for you guys, but at the same time, you're empowering the average person that maybe is sort of entrepreneurial, that needs the foundation, needs the structure, but is not necessarily a full entrepreneur. But one thing you mentioned is key there. You mentioned going against the grain. I mean, every day we're faced with this, where people are going to tell us you can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. The market is telling you this. How did you go against the grain? I mean, what tips could you give us there?
I mean, your inner voice has to be louder and stronger than the outer voices that we hear. And so I can only say it just comes from courage. It comes from confidence. You've just got to believe in yourself. You got to give yourself permission to fail. And if you can live life without necessarily needing the judgment, positive or negative, of others, you're going to be fine. It takes a lot of internal fortitude, a lot of courage just to be an entrepreneur. And so, it's easy to say to be courage and confident, but when you're swimming upstream like that, it's tough to do. So you just got to believe.
Yeah. And on that concept of believing, of course, we can look back and say, wow, the success has been amazing. But were there times where you were scared that this was going to go under or you were going to fail?
We didn't know. I mean, I didn't know, like, would specifically a female member work out at a club at 10 o'clock at night that wasn't staffed? Like, we had those concerns too. But the only way to really know, and by the way, there's something important here. If we would have asked for consumer feedback before we launched this model, or if we would ask like an attorney, what would they have said? No, I don't want to join a club that's not staffed, because consumers don't know, right? They're not good at telling you what the future. There's a great quote that said, Henry Ford said, if I would ask my consumers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? Not cars, because they can't vision it. So I'm not a big fan of consumer feedback telling you where to go. You've got to use your gut, your instinct, what you think, how you think the world can be a better place, and then you got to go execute on it. So yeah, we didn't know the answer. I couldn't tell you with certainty the business model was going to work. And was I afraid of failing? Absolutely. But it didn't stop us.
And at this time in the career, when you were not just figuring things out, you're in your early 30s, did you have a family? You had kids at this time already?
Did, yes. At the age of 32, had 3 kids, and I should say 2. There was a third one on the way. And then, again, on the entire time, I'd say that one of the most important decisions we made is my partner and I bought out a third partner. So we started this business with 3. We bought out a third partner, and I was like 40 years old, and we took on a massive amount of debt that we had to personally guarantee to buy him out. And at the time I had 4 kids, and that was even more challenging. Took more courage to do that than it did to start the business, because to start the business, I didn't have as much to lose. Now, when you're a family of 4 kids, right, and you're going to take on a massive debt, that takes courage, because if things would have gone wrong, I mean, financially we're ruined.
Yeah, and that to develop that courage is just extremely tough. I mean, you have to really be able to bet on yourself, and you just don't know what the future is going to hold. And to navigate, it's extremely challenging.
So you mentioned the term bet on yourself. So think about this. Whoever's listening to this, you have areas to invest your money. You can invest it in real estate. You can invest it in the stock market, right? You can invest in mutual funds. Why not invest it in yourself? That is essentially what an entrepreneur does, or like you said, an entrepreneur, or even like a franchisee. You don't have to like come up with a brand new idea. There are thousands of franchising options that you can marry your passion or marry what you're good at along with a franchise brand. And you can still get the benefits of being an entrepreneur with a little bit more of a safety net from a proven formula and a support system. So, I mean, I love the term bet on yourself. At the end of the day, it's the best bet I've ever made in my life.
And it's paid off in dividends, absolutely, of course. So I appreciate that. Now, from a leadership quality standpoint, one thing that happened we saw in the last couple of years was obviously the pandemic, COVID, and it wasn't just your gym, but everyone was impacted, from restaurants to even brands like LA Fitness, Lifetime Fitness, etc. What did you do as a leader to prepare yourself or handle that, or how did you handle that?
We had a formula for COVID. When COVID started to shut down our clubs, here was our priorities. We said, all right, team, we need to worry about our members first. As you mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have over 3 million members around the country. How do we continue to support them through COVID? How do we provide them digital content? How do we make sure they can freeze their membership and, financially they're taken care of? So number one, consumer first. Number two, franchisees. We're really a network of small business owners. And so we had to help them shut down safely, open up responsibly, what to do as they're shut down, how to negotiate with landlords and get relief money. So worry about consumers, worry about franchisees, worry about our vendors. And then lastly, we worry about ourselves. And that, I think, is what a leader does, right? They make sure to take care of all their stakeholders first. And lastly, worry about shareholders. And so that was our formula. We followed it well. I couldn't be more proud of our team. And we did those in order. And we have navigated this far better than most companies. And quite frankly, far better than most fitness brands.
And from a culture standpoint, how do you prepare for the future where something else could happen, whether it's a recession, whether it's that? How are you prepping your team as a CEO now to, forecast future disasters potentially?
Yeah, we've already been through this, and so everything's pretty much documented. But we're always going to stick with that same formula I mentioned, and we got to worry about liquidity. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to have some cash reserves. You got to have a healthy balance sheet. I mean, what you saw during COVID is those businesses impacted. I mean, just like a person with poor health, COVID affected a person with underlying health conditions worse. Well, if your business has underlying health conditions, if you've got a unhealthy balance sheet, if you've got, that's going to impact you more. So at the end of the day, we've got to always prepare for the next pandemic by having high liquidity, a healthy balance sheet, making sure we are ready to go for that. We try to say the same thing to our small business owners.
And, and a healthy balance sheets are key, being able to, whether you're picking a stock or whether you're picking a franchise, you got to know how to read a business. I'd be curious from your perspective as a CEO building one of, the most popular franchises in the world, what should someone listening to this look for in a franchise? What are some key metrics that you say you should look for if you want to invest in a franchise?
Yeah. And number one, you should look at their track record. They have it's called an FDD, franchise disclosure document, that should list, the financials of the business, their past performance, how many of the franchises have closed or failed. And so also meet with the corporate team. I mean, you are signing a franchise agreement, and that is going to be almost like a legal marriage for at least 5, 6 to 10 years. I mean, that's an average length of a franchise agreement. Spend some time in the actual unit. Try to study the industry. Is the industry growing along with the unit level performance? And then hopefully it's something like you actually are curious about or passionate about, because it's always more fun to work on something you really believe in. So do your homework. Really investigate the team, investigate the financials, investigate the industry, and before you make a commitment.
Yeah, and that's amazing to understand. And again, the research and due diligence. A lot of us Gen Zs, we forget to do that. We forget to do the research and diligence side, and that's key. I mean, we want things so fast now with Instagram, TikTok, social media. We want everything so quick.
Yeah, I'd like to say it. Anytime fitness looks great, but remember, we're into this for 20 years. It's been 20 years of grinding, 20 years of hard work. And I'll say this: everyone, like you said, the younger generations want the outcome. They want the result. But I promise you, and what's incredibly rich is the journey to get here. Like, it's been 20 years of learning, 20 years of fun, 20 years of purpose, 20 years of growing relationships. That is more fun than the outcome, because in business, there's no like Super Bowl where you suddenly win an event and it's over for that season. Business never stops. And so you have to enjoy the journey, because there really isn't a summit. And if you're at the summit, you're only there for like a day, and then you got to keep moving on. So business is strange that way. There's no off season, and there's no like global championships. You just got to keep grinding. So you got to love that grind.
Yeah, I love that. It's the journey is really where the happiness is, the success. The outcome is the side effect.
Exactly right. You're 100. And by the way, money is a byproduct of that journey. So I know people are money motivated, but you know what? Money should be an outcome of what you do. It's the byproduct of your pursuit. And so think of it that way. It's like, how do you drive home a service or product that changes people's lives, and the money will follow?
Yeah. Now you built this over the last 20 years. Again, just a remarkable story. But would you go back from what you learned? What would you tell 20 years ago, Chuck? What would you say to him?
Do we have time for like an 8-hour podcast? Because and I'm telling you, there are so many mistakes over the last 20 years. Look, my partner and I are learning. We've never, every day we wake up, this is the biggest company we've ever led. And so, and think about what we've been through over the last 20 years. I mean, you were probably a little bit younger, but at the end of the day, we had the global crisis in 2008, 2009 that rocked the banking community and rocked real estate. We've been through this social media and this digital revolution where everything's been digitized, and like literally the world is changed. And now we've been through the great pandemic. So we've been through, and we've gone global. I mean, at the end of the day, having a domestic franchise is one thing, but when you've got franchises all around the world, there's an incredible amount of complexity. So it's been nonstop learning, and we have made mistakes along the way. I would definitely change how our marketing's gone. I would definitely change things like our uniformity. I mean, I could go on a long list of things we would change, but guess what? We're good at, if we make a mistake, we fix it tomorrow. We are like algorithms, right? If you think about us as humans, when you make a mistake, you reprogram the algorithm so you don't make it again, and you get better and you get better, right? So one thing I'm proud of is our business has been a bit of an algorithm. We're not perfect. We'll take a step backwards, but we always constantly try to relearn and make that algorithm a little bit smarter year after year.
Yeah, and I'm one of my missions with this podcast is to help Gen Zs understand that, because my generation specifically, when we fail, it's something weird. I don't know if you call it soft or whatever you say, but we have a hard time after failing to get back up, especially after we work so hard for something. Statistically, it's shown that it's hard for us to get back and do it again, especially when we see people are making millions of dollars randomly selling JPEGs or NFTs or things of that. So, I mean, how can we at 20 or 19 years old develop what you're speaking about, that algorithm, to understand that it's okay to fail? I mean, is it just understanding that, that's part of life? Like, what would you say?
You have to get in the mindset that you are a lifelong learner, whether you go to college or not. When your college is done, your education just continues, right? My son graduated college, but now he's opening up a business. That's where his real education is going to happen. And so, within the journey of Anytime Fitness over the last 20 years, I've had so many mistakes, like an idea, an initiative, a hire. Maybe I made a bad hire. I mean, at the end of the day, my 20 years is littered with mistakes. But what was your intent? Did you put in the work? And sometimes you just can't control the outcome. And so, look, if you are striving for something, and as you said earlier, if you do some homework and you really go in prepared and you put in the work and it doesn't work out the way you thought, you can honestly look at yourself and say, guess what? I had the right intent. I did the homework. I did all that. And you're okay. Now you'll repivot and do something else. But you can't fool yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to become self-aware with who you really are and being very critical about yourself. And, too many of us are chasing this short-term dream. Like you said, social media is thinking everyone out there is getting rich with NFTs. That's bullshit. Man, that doesn't happen in real life. Go do the effing work and put in the grind, do your homework, and, be relentless. It is a long journey to success for a vast majority of people.
And so, Chuck, if I'm hearing you correctly, from your experience of building $1 billion company, you have to do the work. Like all this bullshit, you have to do the work. That's the number one key to success.
Well, do the whole, like you said, make sure your vision is strong. Like, do you know where that's kind of your compass, like where are you going? But then do your homework on your competitors, on the industry, the SWOT, your personal SWOT, like your strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats, and then you got to put in the work, and you got to, galvanize the team to do that with you. So it's a combination of things. You got to have the right vision, the right homework, and the work ethic to do it. And then as you build a team, man, you can't be a founder. You got to be a leader, and there's a difference in that.
And I think one thing you just mentioned there, competitors, I bring that up a lot on the podcast too. A lot of times our generation specifically, again, is we're we're almost lackadaisical and lazy that because, oh man, X, Y, and Z is already doing it. I mean, in your industry, every day I see something new. I see Rumble Fitness, Conic and I were just speaking about that, these different gyms that are coming every day. Orange Theory Fitness, right? There's competitors left and right. But what do what's your key there to understand that, okay, there's competitors, but we have a niche here and we can kick their butt?
Yeah, we've always been aware of what our competitors are doing, but we never let it dictate our strategy. We have an experience. We have a product or service that people need. We have to execute at a high level to make sure we do that. And if we do, we're going to be fine. I mean, there's an abundance of opportunity in the fitness space because more and more people understand they need to work out, and COVID should help that. So at the end of the day, if we execute on our product or service, we know we will do fine with competition.
I love that. That's key right there. And then, as we transition into the closing part of the podcast, what does your routine look like? Because to be in your title and your role, I know you're working a lot of hours. I mean, what does your daily success routine look like?
I'm an early riser, so I love to get up early, say 5:30. I have my cup of coffee. I've got to wake up and check the world. I will check, of course, morning email. I'll read a variety of digital newspapers. I'll check like Twitter and some other things. I love Twitter, by the way, because it gives me access to thought leaders I wouldn't get in a traditional newspaper. So I kind of want to get settled in with what's going on in the world. And then I try to do a morning workout. And for me, working out is about mental acuity. It's about less stress. It's about optimizing my mood and behavior and my energy. So number one, I'm ready to get into the day. Then I head in the office and, I've got my calendar. I'm very particular about managing my time. So, what areas of the business am I going to focus on? I've got my daily, weekly, monthly calendar I'm always optimizing and looking at. And then it's meeting with our leaders. It's, looking at the metrics of the business, making sure we're allocating resources. So it's pretty much work all day. And then evenings, it could be time with family, time with friends, time doing some fun things. But, in today's world, we're always kind of connected. But I pride myself and we're always working, we're always playing. So there are plenty of times when I can leave to go play a round of golf or leave to go on a vacation. But there are other times when I'm working. So it's a balance.
And I mean, as you understand as a founder, you love what you do regardless. Work is fun in a way, I'm sure, in some capacity.
Yeah, not every aspect of it is fun, but I like the purpose. Like what we do means so much because we improve people's lives. And so it absolutely is meaningful. It provides purpose. We love it. It's challenging. It's complex. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't have this stuff all figured out. So it's harder than it's ever been. It's more complex than it's ever been. Yet here we are. We love the journey. We love our team. We love what we stand for. So that stuff keeps you grinding at a level that is, very high performance.
Well, look, I appreciate you providing us that insight into what it looks like day to day as a CEO. I'm sure that's helpful and inspirational to a lot of people. Now, flip side a question for you. What's your biggest concern for, Conic and I's generation, our age group, the 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 years old? What anything you see as a red flag or concern that you hope that we can shift?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what you said. I mean, look, due to technology, our attention span has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. People are getting less patient, right? And typically to build a business, right, you hear about this overnight success story, but that's not really what happens. 99% of the time, it is putting in years and years of work to build in a business. My son, as you mentioned before, is opening up that base camp in Chicago. And if he wants to get wealthy, if he puts in a good decade of work, he might have dozens of base camps and he's going to be quite rich. But 10 years, that's 10 years of working. That's 3,650 days of grinding and hiring people and firing people and making mistakes and marketing and just nonstop. There's a pace with it. So, I mean, and I don't know if the younger generation today says, oh, I'm willing to put in the work they say they'll put in the work for 10 years, but will they really do it? Everyone wants immediate success. They want to drive a Lamborghini when they're 28. Shit just doesn't happen in real life.
Yeah. It does not happen in real life. What you're seeing on Instagram doesn't happen. And by the way, what you mentioned, if you want to get to opening up 1,000 locations, you got to sacrifice Friday nights and Saturday nights where a lot of people don't want to sacrifice that.
I'll give you the story. When I was in my 20s, before Anytime Fitness, we were making pretty good money doing this marketing campaign. And I would still go out and have fun with my buddies, right? But maybe once or twice a week. They'd be going out 4 or 5 times a week. So on a Tuesday night when they'd go out to the bar, I was home reading some books, right? I mean, trying to educate myself on financial fluency and marketing and business. And so, yes, you don't need to sacrifice your entire life, but you do need to make some sacrifices to achieve things that others will not. And so maybe that means saving money. When I stopped doing that business, I had money saved. We could buy our own business. Most of my buddies blew their money. And so are you learning? Are you putting in the time? It's like you mentioned your aspirations for health, right? you know, you got to put in the work. It's not going to, and by the way, it's going to take a grind. It's going to take a grind of day to day, week to week, month to month. I mean, if you do it, you will be successful. If you don't, you won't. It's period. And you know that, right? It's like anything else in life.
I love that. I just love how you keep it so transparent. Like there's no fluff. And I think that's my favorite part about it. It's just the facts are there. It is what it is. Now, what if you don't have money? What if you're 20, like you said, you didn't come from a fortunate background. You didn't have, I mean, even Jeff Bezos got $800,000 loan from his father to kind of bootstrap Amazon. You had nothing. So what if you have no money?
One of the things I'm most proud of in life is I read a book at the age of 20. I still have it. And it taught me about like compound interest and mutual funds and having your money work for you. So I immediately started mutual funds when I was 20 years of age. And anytime I had additional cash, I had it automatically taken out of my account every single month. So I treated my investments like a bill, like a car payment, right? It had to be made. And then when I had more money, I put money in there. And so over 7 years, I saved money. I came off, I didn't leave my business until I had over 100 grand saved. And for a 27-year-old, 100 grand, you know, going back in time was pretty good. And that allowed me, by the way, to buy our first health club, which ultimately led to Anytime Fitness. And so, look, people have to put money away, because if they don't come from money, because here's what happened. The banker looked at me and said, gosh, you're 27 years old. You had the discipline to save money for the last 6 years. And that shows me you're going to have the discipline to run a business. So it wasn't just the collateral and the credit score. It was the banker saying, I know this person has the mindset to be a disciplined operator because they show discipline in their life. And so if you show up with a bank at 27 years of age and they look at your past, you look at your credit score and it's okay, and you know how much collateral, and they're like, you have any money saved? You just say, no. What do you think they're going to say? Well, this person's irresponsible. Why would I loan this person money if they can't even save it for themselves? And so, you know, that I'm telling you, that may have been one of the most important things that I've done in my life, because had I not saved that money, I couldn't have bought our first club. And without that first club, it wouldn't have led to Anytime Fitness.
Wow. I mean, I think that's just so inspirational for people that just don't have money or don't come from it, to understand that discipline. That's okay. You can still build.
And remember, I didn't start Anytime Fitness till 32 years of age. So you never know when the opportunity is going to present itself, and you got to be able to take action. And money gives you freedom and power to like take action, take risk. Without money, there's no risk. And if you have a great idea and you have to go find money, then guess what? You have to dilute your equity, and you may not have as much power or influence as you once had. So at the end of the day, what matters more, going out on a Friday night, having a fancy car, or having majority ownership of a company that you started? I'd rather have the latter.
I love that. And have you guys had to raise money in the recent, or you guys have done it all?
We never have. We bootstrapped it the entire time. We took on a minority investment from private equity back in 2014 because we wanted to. We brought them in as a strategic strategic partner. And we took some chips off the table. So it was by our choice. My partner and I still own majority of this company. And at the end of the day, it all started with our ability to fund this company with our own cash.
Wow. I mean, what a great American, just motivational story there. Again, you didn't go to Silicon Valley. You didn't dilute everything. You guys still own majority ownership. There's just so many gems and takeaways you can take from that. So remarkable.
Yeah, thanks. So, and lastly, I'll say this is, remember, everyone here is like their own operating system. And you cannot be your very best unless you are healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy, emotionally healthy. So if you're not working out regularly, you're not at your best, period. And I'm not, and I don't give a shit what the scale says. I really don't. But if you need mental acuity, if you need a growth mindset, if you need to operate at your very best, number one, physically, mentally take care of yourself. And then then you can be your very best. So yeah. I don't see it any other way.
And that's what you guys are doing at Selfesteem Brands. Now, for people that are listening in now and really want to learn more about what you guys got going on, where can they see more about your franchises?
They can visit Selfesteem Brands, our website. They can also just check out any of our individual brands, Anytime Fitness, The Bar Method, Basecamp Fitness, Waxen City. And we just recently acquired a digital nutrition company called Stronger You Nutrition. And so any of those provide opportunities to be a coach, to be a franchisee, to work with on the front lines. And we have plenty of opportunities, huge white space, especially globally. We are growing quite quickly outside the US.
Awesome. Well, guys, I will put all the links for that in the description below. And again, as a reminder, Basecamp Fitness is opening up here in Chicago going into 2022. So do check it out right here in Chicago. I'll post all the information there. Chuck, this last half an hour has been a masterclass to learn from someone who's built such a massive company like yourself. Thank you for no fluff, keeping it as legit and real as possible. The audience will really appreciate this one. This was remarkable.
Thanks, Mayor. Hope to see you in Chicago, man.
Absolutely.
On a bike.
See you soon.
Working out on a bike next to you.
100 pounds coming in. Thanks, Chuck. That was really good. I really appreciate the time.